Hey everyone, we are going to talk picky eating today, and I'm about 15 minutes late from my time that I said I was going to start this live because I was making soup for my family and we had to get my daughter settled and everything. So we're here now talking picky eaters. I am totally down to take your questions about gut health, even about babies if you want to talk about that, depending on who's here. But the reason for this live is because my course Feeding Picky Eaters is on sale, and it's $100 off, plus you get my free cookbook and my meal plan, which is pretty awesome. And it's $249 the sale price, $349 regular, $100 off, which is a great deal because to work with a nutritional therapist for one session is about $200 to $300. So you're getting many sessions with me, and you're going to be able to integrate these principles over time. And it's really important to understand where picky eating comes from, because you want to have confidence and knowledge so that you can enact your power as the parent and help your child thrive. So if we are going to be changing over someone's diet that is your child, you are not going to have to worry about hurting their feelings or that you're doing the wrong thing, because you'll understand the body and how the body works. And so this is like the main key. I think that when parents understand a little bit more about how the body utilizes nutrients, and when parents understand what happens with their microbiome and their child's microbiome, it makes the whole topic just so much easier. So if you want to put your questions in the chat about your picky eater, you can ask me about their age, you can ask me about their preferences, you can tell me like, oh, they eat these foods, they refuse these foods, what would I do? I love to help parents get results. That is why I have this business here, because I want parents to have more harmony in their lives. Really, the reason I became a nutritional therapist has always been driven by children and mothers, and I want the world to be a better place. And I think that if we all have regulated blood sugar, that can happen. So there's two main physiologic components that we want to look at when we're helping a child transition to more gut healing foods and more foods that are initially less tantalizing to a taste bud that's hooked on processed foods, but ultimately super satisfying and very delicious once they become the pattern and the habit. They're very satiating and they're very nourishing, and the body goes towards health. So once we start to get on a roll with these foods for our children, that can really change over what they actually want. Main two aspects we want to look at is blood sugar regulation and the state of the gut microbiome. So when it comes to the state of the gut microbiome, there is a lot of things that we want to consider, because it's connected to our gut, and our gut is how we digest nutrients. Our microbiome helps us to digest nutrients. So when our microbiome is functioning properly, it helps us to detoxify, it helps us to absorb nutrients, it even creates nutrients. It creates vitamins that the body can use. It is the pathway between the gut and the brain, which is why a lot of times there is a connection between autism and picky eating, because there's a pathway between the gut on the enteric nervous system where microbes travel. And if there's an imbalance of gut microbes and there's more pathogenic or opportunistic microbes in the gut, they can send signals to the brain craving certain foods, and they can also sort of clog up the brain. We want this highway, this river that's flowing from the gut to the brain, to be really clean and clear and to be able to do its job, which is to transport nutrients and messengers and communicate with cells. But if there's a lot of toxicity, which is either coming from an off-gassing microbiome that's imbalanced, or from the outside world, which we all live in the toxic world, we all live in the toxic soup, that connection is going to be clogged and it's going to create sensory issues. And that's why, gut health, sensory issues, autism, all of those things come together to create this puzzle piece, right? And we're just going to slowly put one piece of the puzzle together at a time. And even the more extreme diagnostic labels like AFRID or, the fear of the foods, that can also be driven by the microbiome. So it's really important to get a grasp on that, and then you can start seeing your child's behavior and the tantrums through the lens of the microbiome. And I just love that, because it's like, oh, it's not my child that I am disgusted with, it's their microbiome. Okay, so I got some questions up here. We just touched on the microbiome piece, and now I'm going to touch on the blood sugar piece. And I think this question is going to kick us right in. So Be Well by Fatima, she is saying, how would I introduce chocolate and when? This is a great question, and people are shocked because my toddler, he's almost 3, he's never had chocolate before, he doesn't even know what chocolate is, and really by 18 months, most toddlers are having like a hot chocolate from Starbucks. So he's definitely not the norm, and it was really funny when I was talking to my grandmother. She was like, so Augie's never had a cookie, and this was last summer, and I was like, nope, he's never had a cookie. And she's like, he doesn't know what really cookies are. And I was like, not really. And she's like, wow. And I was like, he's never even had wheat. And she's like, wow, right? And so my grandmother's 91, and it's really special that she's alive, and she gets to, be with my babies. But it's just really funny because it's such like a different idea, like so much that it's like shocking to her, right? And the reason why I've held off on chocolate, wheat, refined sugar is because I want Augie's microbiome to have as much of a chance to stabilize without those foods being introduced. And if you're already in the position of like, well, shoot, I've already like given my child sugar, I've already given my child chocolate, they're like, 2 or 3, it's okay. There's still a lot of things you can do, and it's not that big of a deal. But for me personally, it was my parenting choice to not include those foods. And this is like things I learned way back in nutritional therapy school, that like basically if you don't give a human sugar and then you give it to them, it pretty much looks like they're having a psychotic break. And so sugar is a very intense drug for the body, and I personally am a recovering sugar addict. I used to have insane amounts of sugar addiction that I have healed, and I don't have any sugar addiction anymore, which is amazing. Since telling my grandmother that story, Augie, we made some homemade muffins together. He loves bananas, like that's his jam. And so we'll just let him ride the fruit ride as long as possible. So chocolate is a yeast feeder, and chocolate is actually not even really that traditional of a food. And I know the cacao lovers are going to be like, what? It's been used for all these years. And I also love cacao, and I respect the medicine. And yes, at any time we can indulge in chocolate or sugar, and it can be okay. But for our kids, on a consistent basis, I would much prefer to give them natural sweeteners, like something like fruit, and maybe honey would be wonderful, even maple syrup, heavy cream, desserts like cheesecakes that you can make and sweeten yourself. That's my preference for children. Chocolate is also a stimulant, and so I don't think children need stimulants. They have plenty of energy, and they can just go on their own life force without needing chocolate. So I have been saying that I'm going to introduce wheat and chocolate around 4 years old. Now, I might take that back because that's basically 1 year from now. And so if Augie's 4 and I'm not ready to do that yet, then I'm just going to hold off. But it's not like he's never going to have wheat in his life. He is going to have wheat in his life. It's just not going to be a pattern for our family. It's same with chocolate. Like, he is going to have chocolate. I'm sure he'll love chocolate. I'm not making it a bad food. I'm just driving the ship in a way that I have the control at this moment. And I want to shape his body and his microbiome, and then when he's older, he's going to experiment with things. He will have had some exposure from me in our home, and then his body and his immune system won't have like a shock when he has it out and about with friends or at a birthday party. And what's so interesting is that if you train the microbiome and you set up the body with real food and healthy foods, when you try a processed food, rather than it tasting like a treat, it tastes like poison and it smells like poison, and you know it. And that is exactly what we are doing both in the solids foods course and the picky eating course. We're reshaping that gut microbiome, and it's not just from this lifetime, it's from multiple lifetimes, because we've had this degradation of the microbiome and the loss of the traditional ancestral foods, and we've passed on basically depletion. We haven't had really like a generation where there's this reclamation and remembering happening of the real foods. I'm several generations into a deficit of nutrition, and that is really crazy, but reality. And all I'm doing now is trying to turn the ship around so that we're going in the right direction with nutrition and food and microbiome health. And really, this is going to tap into all aspects of vitality for our children. So my ideal is that when Augie tastes a blue cupcake and it has food dye in it, his body recognizes it as, a poison rather than a treat. Now, this topic of birthday parties and family events. I go into so full depth with this topic inside the Picky Eaters course because it's so relevant. So even if you don't have a picky eater, but you're having trouble with food boundaries, or you don't know how to talk to your in-laws or your own parents about this, I give you tools to address that in the course, because when we have clear food values and when we have boundaries around what is important to us, it is so much easier to maintain those boundaries and leave the party or the event or the family gathering feeling so much better, because you knew what you were doing going into it, and you leave feeling really good in your body and just really neutral. Like, your boundary, you held it, it was respected, it wasn't respected, either way you had it. And so you can leave feeling confident that you have done the absolute best for your family. And we really break down the scenarios, and it's super awesome. So just to kind of button this topic about the chocolate, it will be a homemade, I'll use cacao powder, and I'll use maybe cacao butter, or I'll use coconut oil, and I'll make a homemade chocolate thing, and I'll introduce it to him, and he'll be able to have it sweetened with honey. And we'll have that occasionally throughout his, as he's growing up, and then he's going to get older and be able to have access to more things because he's more independent, and he tries things, and his body tells him what to do because it's prepared for that, basically. Okay. Let's see, another question. Great question. How important would you say what they're eating versus what they're not eating? For instance, my 21-month-old daughter doesn't eat processed foods, but he doesn't have a huge diversity of what he eats. That's a really good question. And I think that at 21 months old, the diversity, so long as they eat fermented foods, really doesn't matter that much. You want to prioritize nutrient-dense foods. It doesn't surprise me or shock me if a 21-month-old doesn't love broccoli or is a little bit hesitant to try a bunch of new vegetables. But I do want to make sure that that child is getting the nutrients that they need, so the vitamins and minerals which come from real food. So that's going to be a lot of animal-based foods. That's going to definitely include microbiome support, which would be fermented brines ideally. So the liquids from your fermented foods are really great. And then they can go into eating the fibrous vegetables from the fermented brines as well, but always just start with the liquid because that primes the body. And then, making sure that their bases are covered. They need eggs, right? If they're not getting eggs, then they need another source of choline, which is really important for their growing brain. They need cholesterol. They need animal fat. So all of those bases need to be covered, which is why in the second lesson of the Picky Eaters course, I deep dive into child's nutrition and talk about the nutrients that our children need and how to get it in them. And then as their body is set up and functioning really well, so we just want optimal health from the functionality of the organs and of the organ systems. And then we can just trust that their body is going to be just fine and regulate as it needs. Wonderful question. Any more questions? Okay. How detrimental are antibiotics and where to go when they are needed? My picky 16-month-old has been on them a few times for ear infections, and I'm currently 26 weeks pregnant and on antibiotics for pneumonia. Okay, Abigail. Great question. Antibiotics are only to be used in life-saving circumstances. So if you have if you're having chronic ear infections, that means that and you're having antibiotics, several rounds of them, that means that the underlying problem is not being addressed. So I definitely recommend building foods and working on the microbiome, and the Picky Eater course would be perfect for you, because if your kid refuses foods, you have to first understand how to navigate and get those foods into your body before you can do a deeper protocol. If you have pneumonia and you're on ongoing antibiotics while you're pregnant, you can take a probiotic while taking your antibiotic. Not a lot of people talk about this, not a lot of people know this, but you can and should take a probiotic, not at the exact same time that you take the antibiotic, but in a couple hours later, take the probiotic. Take it multiple times per day. Eat fermented foods. You're wiping out that good gut flora while you're pregnant. And I'm not saying this to freak you out. I'm saying this to just you can take some action and feel more confident because you put into play some things that are super important for your children's health. So I would start with the picky eater course, and then once you have like just more of your wits about you about like, you know, healing foods, getting your kid eating more nutrient dense foods like pretty quickly, because it happens pretty quick with kids, which is amazing. Then you can go into the deeper protocols and understand how to heal the microbiome, get rid of those chronic ear infections. But honestly, they could even go away even just with a little bit of work through the picky eater course. It's like we have to stop that snowball from happening, right? Like it's a smaller snowball and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. If you have the chronic and recurring infections and the kid doesn't eat the nutrient-dense foods, their body can't heal optimally. And so that's the main reason for you to go after the picky eating, because you've already seen the domino effect of the picky eating, which is a lot of times what I talk about. People say, oh, it's just a phase, it's developmental, it's no big deal. Everybody's a picky eater, everybody has preferences. Yeah, but then it starts to affect their immune system, their brain health, their mood. They start having tantrums. You're losing your authority and you're at a loss of what to do, and you feel like crying because they're crying and throwing themselves on the floor. And really what we want is for our children to eat the food we put in front of them and confidently know that this food is going to serve their bodies for the rest of their lives. Great question, Abigail. Thank you for asking that. How can you make your baby like meat stock? Just started solids at 8 months old and he didn't like it. I didn't use salt and it was just chicken. Okay, great. Thanks for giving me all that information. Honestly, that doesn't surprise me. Sometimes babies they just take a little bit of time to adjust, and it just takes them a minute to catch on to meat stock. And there was a study that said it was like up to 27 times of exposure for a kid to take to a new food. So what I suggest for you is for you to start drinking the meat stock yourself so that it goes through your breast milk. I suggest that you drink the meat stock in front of your baby and just give him little swipes in his mouth. Like just literally put a little bit on your finger and touch it on his tongue and just start that way. Like super small, super playful, delicate. It's like there's no question of like liking a food. Like a baby doesn't not like a food. They're gonna love food. 8 months old, you could probably add some sea salt. I would be curious if that changed how the baby takes it in too. Typically, like if it's just starting solids at 6 months old, I would say like, you know, let's try a little bit of salt-free and see how they go. And then if not, you can definitely add sea salt. I don't think it's like a big deal. I've done tons of reels on this. I've actually looked a lot at the research on sea salt, and the measurement of sea salt was based on mother's like adequate intake. So they measured breast milk and saw how much sea salt was in breast milk. And there's like obviously way different ranges of how much salt was in breast milk. And so they based the numbers on how much salt babies should have through that test, that experiment. And basically, I don't think that tells us that much because of the variations. And also sea salt is really good for us because of all the trace minerals. And it's something that's very hard to overeat, right? Like you as an adult, you can't really overeat salt. You want salt, you want salt, you want salt, and then you don't want salt anymore. Same with babies. Like they're not going to go crazy. Now, I don't recommend giving high sodium isolated minerals and processed foods to babies. Not at all. I don't recommend giving fast food to babies, which has, we're messing with the mineral content by extracting and processing the salt and bleaching it and all that stuff. I'm talking about real whole sea salt here. And there was one more thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, if your baby is on formula, this might be an even more difficult transition. And so just add a little bit of meat stock to the formula that you're already feeding them, like replace 1 ounce of the water with meat stock, and then build up from there. My 3-year-old was having it fine, but since upping the meat stock a few times a week, he started to flare. Okay, so basically what that means is that you have figured out your optimal dose at this time. So if you don't want the flare to happen, then you can come back to the dose that was happening before the flare. And if the flare continues, all that's telling you is that die-off is happening and that meat stock is helping your child's body heal. This is a good sign. Let it play its course and use detox baths, which I teach about extensively in Mama Baby Biome. Okay, when to introduce dairy into my diet while breastfeeding babies intolerant. Okay, so we're getting a little off topic of the picky eating course. I will get to your question, Victoria, but I'm just going to go into the second... Hello. I'm going to go into this second idea about the physiology. I talked about the gut and the microbiome for picky eating, and now I want to talk about blood sugar regulation. So blood sugar regulation is a very small window. We can have up to like 2 teaspoons of sugar in our blood. And we really want to feel really like steady and calm with our energy all day long. And what helps us to stay calm in our energy and not feel like we're on, not feel hangry, not feel like we're totally need a sugar hit and then we crash and we're not going to be able to pick our heads up unless we have a coffee or a cake, something like that. How adults feel that way is also how our children feel. So they are going to be very much addicted to that roller coaster if they're not having the stabilizing energy that comes from animal fats and proteins. So we need to give our children enough animal fat every day so that they can go without, like, a while without eating and not feel terrible, okay? So if our blood sugar drops too low, that is a true emergency to the body, and that's why the craving for sweets comes so fast, because sugar is like sprinting fuel. So if you think about runners, they're given like things like potatoes, and they're given like little bits of starches because that goes straight to the muscles and gives them the ability to sprint a little bit longer. But the more fat that we eat, that is our long burning fuel. So you can think about that as like the log on the fire rather than the kindling. Okay, so if you have and are wanting more long burning fuel, you need to increase your fats. So the emergency situation happens in the body and it signals to the kid, I need sugar right now. And a lot of times the way that that is going to come out and be portrayed to you as the parent is a meltdown, a tantrum, demanding something. So now we have 2 things going on. Our main energy system of the body, how the body makes energy, is handicapped because we're not giving the kid enough nutrient-dense foods, enough balanced energy to keep going. And then we're feeding the imbalance of the microbiome, which is creating a deeper imbalance of gut bugs, and those gut bugs are also demanding to be fed so that their species can stay alive. So those two aspects of your child's physiology are the main points that we address inside the course. And we have developmental strategies for each of the age groups, starting from a toddler all the way up until a 10-year-old kid, basically. So in each lesson, I talk about how to talk about this in a developmental sense that's appropriate for each of the ages, because we're not just talking about toddlers that are picky. It's older children and even adults. And my husband lovingly jokes that, yes, this will work for your husband too, right? Like, you want to start to, as the mother in the center of the home, you want to start to help everybody thrive. And that means making slow and steady changes. Some of the things you relied on before, you rely on less now, and you just continue to add in more and more nutrient-dense foods. So, for example, pizza is something that everybody likes, and a lot of times kids are really addicted to pizza. And if you're doing a gut healing protocol or trying to get off more starchy and sugary carbohydrates, pizza wouldn't be something that you would want to have every day, and you wouldn't want your kid to say, I'm not eating anything unless it's pizza. And so you can use one of my favorite recipes, which is a meatza recipe, and you make a crust with chicken and pork rinds, and then you can put cheese on it and tomato, and it's really, really good, and it's a much better than option. So there's going to be times where you're just saying no. There's going to be times where you're making better than options. And like I said, this class is really about like dipping your toe in the water and understanding what foods heal and what foods don't. And so it's kind of like my pre-step to a deeper protocol, which would help you heal allergies or eczema. And if you have a picky eater who also has any of those symptoms, you need to start with the picky eating course, because that's going to prep you to do more deeper healing work. And so a lot of times people will ask me, like, do I have to give up everything? Can my kids never have treats? Can my kids never have sweets? No, that's not what this course is, but it's going to give you more of a knowledge base to understand what's happening in the kid's body when you do give them those. And so then you can use your wonderful parental discretion to choose when and when it doesn't happen, right? And that's really important. And then the other main aspect of the course is giving you like confidence, boundaries, language to talk about this and educate your child on what you are doing. So we've had people in this course who have been in my course, Mama Baby Biome, and wanted like a refresher and wanted to hear things from a new perspective. We've had people who have started in the Picky Eaters course and then gone to Mama Baby Biome, anywhere from ages like, you know, a little bit less than 18 months old, all the way up to 10-year-old girl who wasn't eating any foods aside from starch and sugar and now has a really amazing whole food diet. and feels really, really great and understands it. She like gets it herself, and she's so happy that she feels better. She doesn't have any shame anymore that she's not a picky, she doesn't have any shame because she's not a picky eater anymore. And a lot of kids do feel shame that they don't want to try new foods and they're really afraid, but they don't know how to overcome it. And so this is really a family affair. If you have an older child, that's going to help you to overcome that as a family, which is so powerful. Like, it's so amazing. And this is the thing I was thinking about last night, because so many people are like, yes, I'm ready to start solids. And it's like, I get that. I want to help my baby. And for me too, it was like, oh yeah, it's all about my baby. I noticed that because I used to teach more general nutrition, helping women. And it was like, when I had started talking about babies, everybody was ready to make changes, because you see it. It's suddenly like, oh my God, like this beautiful manifestation, or this beautiful part of me that is not me, like this miracle that I've created is manifesting some of the things that ultimately come back to me that I knew I had a problem with, right? And so suddenly it like wakes you up and you're able to take action. But when it comes to toddlers and older children, it just seems like such a bigger hurdle to get over, because they can talk to you and they are so much their own being, whereas they're little babies, they're still like really close to your own system and really a part of you. And so it's like way less encouraged. Like, people are way less encouraged, or it's way harder to get over that hump. They want to like delay it or whatever, but it's not too late. It's actually a fantastic and very important time to help your child's body change. Like, the children heal so quickly. It's amazing. You're going to be jealous because you're just like, wow, those problems went away quicker than I thought they would. And if we have the right tools, we can really help our children no matter the age. And it is absolutely a huge difference that you're making. Like, it's just a perceived barrier. You're just thinking that it's harder because they're a toddler, which, okay, it's maybe not totally perceived as more difficult, but it is possible. And after you get rolling, it's like, oh, actually, look, they adjusted just fine, Wow, okay, cool. I'm so glad I really turned this around. Because it's going to make a difference in their teens and 20s, right? Like, I had total health crisis in my 20s, and I had to change stuff around. I had to change my whole life. I had to deal with anxiety and depression. I had to binge and do drugs and all that stuff. And I really hope my children have more balance. Like, it's not a 100% guarantee, obviously, but I think like the body, and I think it's worth it. Like, I think that the body can really guide people. And when we stop these addictive behaviors in the beginning, no matter where you are in the beginning, if you're under 10, like, there's still a lot you can do. And obviously, as someone who came to this work in my 20s, there's a ton you can do even later in life too, right? Like, there's no lost hope for anyone. I believe we can heal from anything. And one thing this turned on something for me when I first heard this and observed this. It's like, if you see addiction through families, you might see an alcoholic in a family, you might see a food addiction in a family, as in a family member, like, you might see it hit the family in different ways, but ultimately it comes back to what's going on in our microbiome. Or this is why people in AA, while the program is fantastic and has solved a lot of their problems, they move their addiction to candy, because they haven't changed the physiology. They've been able to give up the alcohol with a lot of counseling and spiritual work, which is so profound and important, and it's an important piece of the puzzle, but they just slide into something else because the gut microbiome is still the same. Their physiology is the same. Those nutritional imbalances are not addressed, and that's what we're going to get at both ways: the counseling, the spiritual work, the reckoning, all of that, which is so good. It can apply across channels, not just food, but then also like the baseline, the foundations, the fundamentals, the building blocks, which is the body, the food, the nutrients. Okay, Victoria, back to your question. When to introduce dairy into my diet while breastfeeding if baby is intolerant? This is like something I can't directly answer because there's so many reasons why. Like, there's not just a set day or a set amount of time, but basically, depending on the level of damage of your microbiome in babies, the timing varies. So it could just be that you eliminate all commercial dairy, you eliminate inflammatory foods like wheat and sugar and alcohol, and coffee, and then you start adding in building foods, and you really deeply nourish yourself. You try a properly prepared ghee or butter through your own diet and you test that out on baby that way, in that time that it takes you to start that healing process, your child's obviously going to get older, so you might be able to start solids with your baby and give them some meat stock, and they can do some of their healing on their own, which also can improve how dairy is included. But the main thing, if your baby's less than 6 months old, it's really good to get yourself on a healing protocol. Start switching over some of your macronutrients so you're really fueling your system in a way that helps you sleep and supports your immune system and cleans up the microbiome. That's going to clean up your milk and help baby in general. And then you maybe don't even try dairy again until he's on solids on his own and you can test it with his body. Sometimes I feel like that's clearer rather than having like the muddled fuzziness of like it's going through your own system. And you would learn that in Mama Baby Biome, or you can learn about it in the First Foods Plan. Okay. So my 18-month-old daughter refuses to drink whole milk. We stopped breastfeeding at 16 months. How can I get her to drink milk? Honestly, I don't think she needs to drink milk. I think you need to get her on meat stock and you need to get her on fermented dairy. If she refuses to drink milk, there's a reason for it. And I have a reel on this actually where I talk about whole milk, and I don't think it's important unless it's fermented. If your baby's already on raw milk and enjoys it, that's a different story. But whole pasteurized milk, I don't care. Like, I don't think they should have it. Let me know if you have a follow-up question about that. If I can't get raw milk in Canada, would you suggest A2 milk for a 1-year-old? I would suggest that get the A2 milk and you ferment it, Fatima. I think that fermented milk is much more better for a baby. 1 year old, that's a perfect time to start on yogurt and kefir that you make yourself at home. Okay, what foods to give a 10-month-old baby? Hi. So I have tons of reels on this. You really need to focus on the collagenous cuts of meat. I love sauerkraut, fermented vegetables, local seasonal vegetables and fruit, plenty of animal fats. If you're really confused about what to feed your baby, you can join the First Foods course. I have so much good information in there. My views on the caffeine in cacao. It's a stimulant, and so for kids, it's not the best, but on occasion, if they've already had it, it's cool. You can go back at the beginning of this. I talked a lot about the chocolate. Mm-hmm. How can I help my daughter stop food pocketing? Oh, what does that mean? Like, does she keep it in her mouth? Does she keep it in her pockets? Tell me, what's food pocketing? My 3-month-old has been taking probiotics with vitamin D3 since he was born. Is it enough to keep him healthy? He's also breastfed. It's hard to say. I don't think commercial probiotics are as good as fermented foods. They're not as powerful. They're not as healing. They don't have as many vitamins and minerals. So I recommend implementing some fermented food for your kid. And I never recommend a vitamin D supplement. I think that they can throw off the balance of vitamin A, and the best way to get vitamin D is through sunshine and through whole food. So I recommend cod liver oil. But a really great way to ensure that your baby is getting plenty of nutrients at 3 months old is to make sure you're getting plenty of nutrients. So your baby wouldn't be taking probiotic food until 6 months old, but you can have fermented food, and you can eat meat stock, and you can eat animal fat, and you can take cod liver oil, and all that is going to go through your breast milk to him. And then when you go to start solids, start the gut health way like I teach in my course, and that will help you all. I don't have a kid, but you help me so much in general. Aw, good. It helps. It applies to anyone. Starting solids in 2 months. I want to start with bone marrow and then meat stock. Should I wait a few days between the two, or maybe first day bone marrow, second day meat stock? Sure. I do meat stock first and then add additional fats into the meat stock, like melted down. I think that works really well. My thoughts on baby puree pouches. They are not good because they're pasteurized. So any purees that we give our babies, we want to make it ourselves. Baby food is really simple to make. I actually have a reel that I'm about to post on this, and it's really effective to make it ourselves. it's cost effective and it's time effective. Like, they eat so little, so you can make one big batch and put it in the freezer. You can make a batch of like 3 different things and put it in the freezer. You can put your own pouches. But a pouch from the store that's sitting on the shelf means that that food was sourced. How do we even know? And then it's cooked. How do we know how it's cooked? Like, we assume it's like a pretty sanitary, safe situation. Okay, great. But then it's heated up in that plastic thing and it sits on the shelf. So I'm not a fan of them at all, because there's microplastics and because they are often like really weird macronutrients. So it's often like very much like fruit based, which is going to give a big spike in blood sugar. They're often sweet potato based, which is too much starch and can definitely tip the microbiome. And they don't have animal fats, and it's also pasteurized. So in order for it to be shelf stable, they have to pasteurize it, basically can it, and that deadens the nutrients, doesn't make them bioavailable. And I'm a fan of purees, but constantly sucking from that straw, like if it's something your kid is doing all the time, that's going to not impact the mouth the way that we want it to. We want babies to gnaw on things. We want them experimenting with textures. So I do a mix of, letting my kid chew on bones, letting them experiment and try to pick up food, and also pureeing my own baby food and giving it to them so that they're getting plenty of nutrients. Even the good brands. I never give my kid even a good brand. It's just not my thing. I would much rather just let them gnaw on steak or have breast milk. I don't do it. Okay, I'm giving veggies and healthy foods, but my 14-month-old doesn't chew his food. He swallows it straight. I think it's hurting his stomach, especially at night. Okay, that's also pretty normal. Modeling food, and then give him some pureed vegetables and soups, and give him only fermented vegetables or brines. Like, 14 months old, you can back it up. You don't need to give him so many vegetables. And really like work on chewing together as a family. This is something that we talk about in the Picky Eaters course. The runner's analogy used about sugar crashes that may show up in tantrums, could that be a result of too much fruit? Yes. And you know what? Fruit is so funny. I've been banned by the internet. Crunchy mom's gone extreme is what people label me as when I talk about fruit. But it's so bio-individual. So I have taken fruit completely out of my son's diet and seen like a lot of significant changes in his behavior. And I know that he has yeast imbalances in his body because of his birth, and these take a long time to heal. As diligent as I've been, it's still an issue. And so fruit is one of those things that it's like, it's good for us. But in general, I think it's an overrated health food. And children, like, it always should be local. It always should be hyper seasonal. It should be hyper ripe. And if you see behavioral issues related to the fruit, you're not crazy for removing them for a period of time. You're not hurting your child. You're not creating an eating disorder just by saying, like, we're going to chill on the fruit a little bit. Another telltale sign is if your child refuses other foods for fruit and only wants to eat fruit, then you need to make changes, because fruit is not a good enough nutritional food for a child. Like, it's just not enough nutrition. It's a little bit of sugar, it's a little bit of vitamins, some minerals, but like generally they need building foods. They don't need as much cleansing foods, although cleansing foods can be very beneficial. They need building foods. They need proteins that break down to amino acids and become the building blocks for our neurotransmitters and our hormones. They help us build a big heart, big lungs, big brain. They help us with our eyesight. The animal sources are the most bioavailable proteins to us because they're like our own proteins. So it's a match, right? They don't need grains. They don't need whole grains. They don't need pasteurized milk. They don't need fruit. They need meat and seasonal and local vegetables and fruit on occasion, right? Balance. Okay, my 10-month-old exclusively breastfeeding only likes to eat meat. Great. She used to like meat stock, not anymore. So if she's taking a break from meat stock right now, keep going, keep offering it to her. Maybe blend it with some carrots or something like that. Blend it with some of the collagenous meat that's close to the bone, and give her the meat close to the bone that comes from the stock. That's also going to be really beneficial. Give her liver, give her butter, give her anything that is, in the realm of the nutrient-dense foods I'm always talking about. And don't worry that she's not having meat stock. She'll go back to it. She loves meat stock. She's taking a break right now. Keep offering. Drink it yourself, right? Okay, I feel like my stock is hurting my bub's tummy. He's more constipated. Okay, Vanessa, if you are not in the First Foods course, I definitely recommend getting in there because of the nuance of this. And so meat stock kills yeast. Yeast causes constipation. When there's die-off through meat stock, it's going to sometimes make babies more constipated, but it's actually a good sign because that's causing die-off. So we need to figure out how to get the poop out of the body. And this happened to my son. He was constipated. He never pooped every day as a breastfed baby. He spit up a ton. And I diligently worked with these foods and this protocol, and he poops every single day now, twice a day sometimes. It took us about 6 months to even everything out. We use minerals, we use animal fats, we use bone marrow, we use microbiome support, we use sunshine, because sunshine is going to, like, helping your kids get into their circadian rhythms. It's going to help the rhythm of the poop. Melatonin actually is on the same pathway that our gastric juices are secreted, and so we need to help get the poop out of the body by letting our babies get their circadian rhythm regulated. That means no blue lights at night and seeing the sun when it wakes up in the day. So much you can do about constipation. Get that poop out of the body. I have tons of help for it inside my course, and this will help you understand why it's happening as well. My almost 2-year-old has animal fats for his 3 main meals, be it eggs, chicken, lamb, or fish, and fruits for snack only, yet he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming for fruits or breast milk. Okay, so he is, I think I need to know some more details, but if he's waking up screaming for fruit or breast milk, I would give him breast milk. It's before 2 years old. It's still pretty normal to wake up in the middle of the night screaming, though. Have you introduced any beneficial yeast strains, either through your own diet, like through kefir, or you can take a Saccharomyces boulardii supplement, and he's 2 years old, so he could take it too, or you could sprinkle a little bit on your nipples before breastfeeding. So I would, look at more yeast imbalances, and potentially I would experiment with, like, cutting out fruits in the day to see if that helps, or bring down the fruit portion. I could help you more in mom baby biome with that one. He has a tantrum if you don't give fruits for snacks. So, the Picky Eaters course is going to help you hold your ground. Like, you just sometimes, if he has a tantrum, like, he just has to, like, tantrum it out, and you're saying no, like, you can give him options. So I always say this to Augie. This is, like, the most amazing thing, too, because Augie can throw a tantrum like the rest of them, and he's, like, talking about apple all day long, and we just don't give in, and then we just, like, give him the other food, and then he's just like, oh, yeah, steak, I love steak, it's like, more soup, right? So just, like, don't give in. And if you want more help and more nuance with that, grab the Picky Eaters course, because you'll learn a lot. I think it'll help fill in some gaps for you. Okay, guys, I've been on for 45 minutes. I am going to hop off. I see a couple more questions. Just a reminder, the Picky Eater sale ends tomorrow. So if you're thinking about getting it, go ahead and grab it. It comes with a cookbook, which is fantastic. Usually the cookbook is an add-on, but it's for free right now with $100 off the course and a 21-day meal plan. And I teach you how to use the meal plan. So rather than, like, I personally think it's so difficult if someone's just like, here's a 21-day meal plan, like, follow the meal plan, da-da-da-da. I don't think that works, but I think that if you have anchor meals, which is something that I teach about in the course, and you learn a couple new staples that you can fold into the things you're already doing, it's way more sustainable, and it's how you make actual changes and make actual use out of meal plans. Now, if you're like someone who super loves meal plans and you just, like, check every box and can just do it all, then you'll love it. But personally, for me, I've always been more in the mindset of batch cooking and meal prepping, like batch cooking so that I have enough food throughout the week, things that I really like to rely on, and then I can throw in some anchor meals in there, things that, like, are, like, we have Taco Tuesday, we have pizza on Fridays or whatever, soup every single day, and then I can just, like, manage the food that way. So Picky Eaters course on sale, $100 off through tomorrow. We are going to get you the results that you need. I get results with parents. I'm going to be sharing testimonials today and tomorrow. This is a very profound thing that you can do for your child. It's not too late to start, no matter how much you tell yourself that you're, it's a lost cause. It's too gone. It's going to be too hard. They're going to have the biggest tantrum of my life. This won't work for me. All that stuff, I've heard it before. I've had people that never eat meat, kids that only want to eat Chick-fil-A, and we have strategies that help you to change your family's life, which will rock your world. Okay, I really want to embrace raw dairy, but I have a hard time with the what ifs. Can you address this on... Sure, I can address raw dairy in a reel in the next week or two. My 21-month-old has only been eating beige foods. He started solids on GAPS, but he can't eat eggs or dairy. He's now shied away from the protein. I'm stuck. You're perfect for the course. He's eating beige foods because he was given the option of beige foods. So he's going to want to have rice and bread and pasta, okay? That's just what the microbiome wants when it's imbalanced. But when you bring some more balance to the microbiome, you get him more on the protein, on the meat stocks, you're going to be able to do that. He needs deeper healing too because he has allergies, okay? This is a big deal. So you want to really get ahead of this picky eating while he's still young. 22 months is so young. And take the first step with the picky eating course, put him back on the full GAPS diet, and do the deeper healing so that he can eat eggs and dairy. How do I give a 10-month-old sauerkraut? You give him the juice first. My 7-month baby has eczema on their legs, small patches that don't itch. He's exclusively breastfed, haven't started solids. Okay, well, as the breastfeeding mom, you can add in more meat stock, but probably he's going to need to do some healing on his own. It's a little bit, I'm not going to go fully into this, but if you watch my free masterclass, you'll have a better understanding of how I teach and what I teach in terms of the gut health. It's just I'm closing down the reel, or the live, so I'm not going to open up this big discussion, but my free masterclass has good information for you. Thoughts on Ray Peat and the prioritization of easily digestible sugars. I'm not into it. I think it's fine. Like, again, we eat sugar on GAPS, we eat oranges and stuff like that. But I think that if metabolism is broken, which is one of the goals of the pro-metabolic diet, then we don't need to go about it by giving more sugar. But if that works for you, that's great. What age do I introduce raw milk? I introduce raw milk that's fermented around 6 months old, 6 or 7. How do I give my baby chicken and eggs if he doesn't chew but swallow straight? I'll help you with that in the course. How do you carry homemade food by baby food when traveling? I have a travel guide in my first foods course. My baby's 7 months old and not too keen on... I have talked about this on this live, so you can come back, and I have a story on this. Can a 14-month-old who has only front teeth still chew? Yes. My daughter seems to get a rash around her mouth eating sauerkraut, eventually goes away, but curious, she loves it. Yeah, my daughter gets that sometimes too with certain fermented foods. Are you making it yourself? That would be a question of mine. I find that like store-bought ones are give the rash more often. Hi, Shay. Advice for a baby with weight gain issues, doesn't do bottles, mom on full GAPS, baby starting full GAPS, baby starting solids as divided by pediatrician. Yeah, you should join my course. That'll help you. That will help you. First foods course. Materials doesn't eat veg. Is cold pressed veg soup just as good as whole veg? Yes. I have to put baby down for a nap, but I want to listen later. Yes, I'm going to save this. Absolutely. Sorry, trying to get to everyone's question. Tips for getting a toddler to eat on their own. Aw. I wouldn't start eating in front of a show. Just, that's a slippery slope because then they only want to eat in front of a show. Being active is fine. I actually talk about this in the Picky Eater course. It's like the first lesson. We talk about the table and then I circle back to it, and just like setting up family routines is really, really important. This is the family food culture that we're shifting, not just your kids' food. My child won't drink water. Only cold pressed juices. Why don't you dilute the juice or give meat stock or give shakes? Toddler won't chew food, just pockets it. I have to look up what that is. But I have chewing advice in the course. Any advice for food snacks on the go? Really want to avoid puffs. Hard to eat meat stock out and about. Yeah, don't get the puffs. Don't do it. Don't do it. Meat on the go is great. Just give them meat. Give them yogurt in a pouch. Bring the yogurt. Bring the meat stock in a thermos. You can do it. I know you can be creative and figure out food tips on the go. I also have reels on that. I love you all. If you want to join the First Foods course, you can use code SOLIDS. And if you want to join the Picky Eaters course, it is $100 off with a free cookbook. I hope you do. You're going to be really pumped about the results that you get, and I'm going to be there encouraging you the whole way. It is so worth it to change the habits now rather than wait, rather than putting it off. The $100 off ends tomorrow, and it comes with the free cookbook and meal plan. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for being here.